Hey everyone! We are working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content and it is your first time here, please hit that subscribe button right now as we proceed. Subscribe to this channel right now because the Blue Jays roster situation just developed several new layers of complexity in the past 24 hours, and the picture that is assembling from the reports dropping out of Dunedin is one that every serious Blue Jays fan needs to understand before it fully unfolds in public. The Max Scherzer signing looked clean and straightforward on the surface when it dropped past midnight earlier this week. A veteran presence, a Hall of Fame competitor, a $3 million base salary that represented one of the most favorable contracts in recent baseball history. But underneath that clean surface, the organizational chess game that Scherzer's arrival has set in motion is producing tension, role questions, and roster implications that are going to define how this team enters the regular season on March 27th. Eric Lauer is reportedly heading to the bullpen. His path to starts has not just gotten cloudier, it has effectively closed. More roster moves are coming, and the specific question of whether Lauer accepts a diminished role quietly or pushes toward an exit is the subplot that could determine the shape of this roster in ways nobody fully anticipated when the midnight signing announcement dropped. Let us get into every piece of this because there is a lot moving simultaneously and all of it connects. Let us start with the Lauer situation because Ben Nicholson-Smith's report is the most immediately consequential piece of information to emerge from camp since the Scherzer contract details were confirmed. The indication is direct and specific. Lauer is pretty much going to have to start in the bullpen. Not because his performance has been poor. Not because the organization has decided his stuff does not play at the major league level. But because the rotation arithmetic following Scherzer's signing simply does not produce a starting spot for him regardless of how the conversations in camp are framed publicly. Gausman and Cease are your untouchable anchors. Trey Savage is in the rotation even with the innings limitations being placed on him. Shane Bieber returns from the injured list in late April and slots directly into the rotation when healthy. Jose Berrios is a significant financial commitment who occupies a rotation spot by virtue of his contract and his track record. Cody Ponce has been confirmed as a rotation starter by John Schneider and is not someone who has to earn that status through spring competition. And Max Scherzer, ramping up toward a late April or May return, is not being brought back to sit in the bullpen. When you count the bodies and the organizational commitments, there is simply no starting spot available for Eric Lauer regardless of how the rotation competition is framed in the language coming from the coaching staff. John Schneider's public framing of the rotation competition deserves honest analysis because it is simultaneously diplomatically appropriate and practically misleading for anyone trying to understand where things actually stand. The language being used, everyone is a big boy, whoever performs best will get the opportunity. We are focused on the best 5 at any given time, that includes Max, is the organizational vocabulary of a manager navigating a situation with multiple egos and multiple contracts and multiple players who all have legitimate professional reasons to want the role they have been publicly seeking. It is not inaccurate exactly. In the abstract sense that performance always matters and that spring training results do carry information, the statement is defensible. But in the specific practical sense of who is going to be starting games on opening day and who is going to be moving to the bullpen, the organizational decision has effectively already been made and it does not favor Lauer. The reports are not describing a genuine competition. They are describing a managed communication strategy around a roster decision that was settled the moment Scherzer signed his name to the contract. The Lauer tension is the subplot that carries the most potential energy heading into the weeks remaining before the regular season begins. Think about the specific history here. Weeks ago, Lauer was publicly expressing frustration about his role, frustration about the arbitration outcome, frustration about being moved between starting and relieving in ways that compromised his ability to make the case for his full market value. He was stretching out as a starter in spring training. He was competing for a rotation spot with what every available piece of reporting suggested was genuine competitive desire to start baseball games rather than absorb the middle innings relief role that his arbitration loss and his ERA as a reliever combined to suggest the organization valued him in. And then the Blue Jays signed Max Scherzer. And suddenly his path to starts did not just narrow, it effectively closed. A player who was already operating under documented tension with his organization's role assignments has now watched a Hall of Fame pitcher get added to the depth chart above him. The question that every roster analyst in the building is trying to answer right now is whether Lauer accepts the bullpen assignment with the professional equanimity that Schneider's big boy framing implies, or whether the pressure of this situation produces the trade request that multiple reports have been circling around for weeks without quite landing on definitively. He has not officially requested a trade. That is the factual baseline. But the conditions that would make a trade request rational from his perspective have never been more fully assembled than they are right now. The roster mechanics of adding Scherzer to the 40-man roster are cleaner than the public conversation around them has sometimes suggested, and it is worth being specific about how the organizational path forward actually works. Jake Bloss and Anthony Santander can both be moved to the 60-day injured list to create the roster space Scherzer's addition requires. Neither move requires a trade. Neither move eliminates a meaningful contributor from the active roster picture. Bloss going to the 60-day IL is the cleanest and most obvious solution. It frees the spot, maintains the organizational relationship with the player, and creates no lasting competitive damage to the roster's capabilities. The people suggesting that Lauer needs to be traded before Scherzer can be formally added are operating on a misunderstanding of how the roster construction math actually works. The Lauer situation is not a roster mechanics problem. It is a role satisfaction problem, and those are considerably harder to solve with a simple transaction. The Scherzer contract incentive structure deserves its full appreciation in this context because it is the detail that makes the signing look even better the more carefully you examine it. $3 million in base salary with incentives structured around innings pitched, escalating from 65 innings all the way to 155. If Scherzer reaches the 155 innings threshold, a dream scenario as one report characterized it, the total contract value approaches $13 million. That structure aligns his financial interests with his health and performance in exactly the way smart contract construction is supposed to. If he is healthy and effective and contributing at the level that 155 innings across a major league season requires, the Blue Jays have paid him $13 million for production that would have cost them considerably more on the open market from a younger, less accomplished pitcher. If his arm limits him to a shorter contribution, the $3 million base means the organizational exposure is minimal. The incentive design is not generous, it is elegant. And the reports indicating that Scherzer is feeling really good and potentially ramping toward readiness faster than originally anticipated suggest the pessimistic end of the contribution range may not be the outcome anyone should be planning around. The Kazuma Okamoto development provides the most purely exciting news from yesterday's camp activity and deserves its proper celebration alongside the rotation chess match analysis. Against Thomas White, identified in multiple reports as one of the top pitching prospects in the entire world, a 20-year-old left-hander whose stuff generates serious organizational excitement wherever he is discussed, Okamoto hit a double down the left field line at an exit velocity of 104.9 miles per hour. 104.9. Against one of the best young pitching prospects available in any spring training game. The concern that circulates around international hitters adjusting to major league velocity and major league pitch quality and the specific competitive intensity of professional baseball in North America is a legitimate organizational question that every team faces when bringing a player from the Pacific Rim leagues into the American League environment. Okamoto has now provided multiple specific, high-quality, analytically credible data points suggesting that the adjustment is not something he is struggling with. He is not grinding through an uncomfortable transition period. He is making hard contact against legitimate pitching with the casual authority of someone for whom the velocity is not a surprise and the competition is not overwhelming. Every data point from his spring training performance is pointing toward a player who arrived in Dunedin ready to contribute at the major league level rather than one who needs months of experience before his tools translate. The broader spring training picture assembling across all of these developments is one of an organization managing remarkable complexity with competence and navigating roster tensions that are the inevitable product of having more quality than available spots. A problem that is infinitely preferable to the alternative but that requires careful and deliberate management nonetheless. The Lauer situation is going to resolve itself one way or another in the next 2 to 3 weeks as the roster takes its opening day shape. The Scherzer ramp-up is proceeding with the kind of positive physical indicators that make the optimistic contribution scenarios more plausible than the cautious ones. Okamoto is performing against quality competition in ways that validate the organizational investment. Berrios is bouncing back. Dalton Varsho is quietly crushing baseballs in a way that deserves more attention than the rotation drama is allowing it to receive. JAYS Sanchez is not being discussed enough given what he could add to this lineup against right-handed pitching. The full team, is assembling into something that looks increasingly capable of sustaining the championship window that last year's World Series run confirmed is very much open. More moves are coming. The reports are explicit about that. They could be as simple as the Blas and Santander roster maneuvers that create the Scherzer spot. They could extend further into the market if the right bullpen addition becomes available at the right price. And the Lauer situation could produce a trade that lands this team an asset before anyone outside the organization fully expected the conversation to reach that conclusion. Watch this space carefully over the next 2 weeks because the Blue Jays are not finished building and the roster that takes the field on opening day is going to look different from the one currently assembled in Dunedin in ways that matter for the competitive picture. Drop everything you are thinking in the comments right now. Does Lauer accept the bullpen role and stick around, or does this situation force a trade before opening day? Does the Scherzer incentive structure make you more or less excited about his potential contribution in 2026? And what does a fully assembled Blue Jays lineup with Okamoto in the middle of the order look like against the best pitching in the American League? Get every opinion into the comments immediately, smash that like button, subscribe to this channel for daily Blue Jays coverage that stays ahead of every development, and share this video with every Blue Jays fan you know because the moves are coming and you do not want to be the last one to know. Let us go Blue Jays!